And welcome back. Ghana is in a dilemma as it weighs the cost of up to 40% head cut for its Eurobond investors in a bid to restructure its maturing debts. Ghana is required to restructure some $10 billion of its external debt as part of the IMF conditionalities for the release of the remainder of its $3 billion bailout following the release of an initial $600 million earlier this year. But this situation could land Ghana into more trouble as any desperate decision could force investors to shut the country out of the international bond market. More on that shortly for you, though. First, listen to the Minister of Finance, Kenneth Ferretta, speaking to Joy Business's George Wefe on plans for this restructuring.
The private creditors and the Eurobond, some will say that it could be quite an interesting one because what terms are you offering them to ensure that they come on board? These are private bilaterals. Yes, of course, they would be able to understand Ghana's situation, but a private person, a private bank, really, he's looking at his shareholders, he's looking at his bottom line, he's looking at hitting his targets. It could be an interesting negotiation, some would say.
It will be, but it's not, a situation where very decent returns have been earned over a certain period, and the world has gone through this difficulty which has affected all creditors. How then do you restructure the portfolio such that it will be paid over time? So you need to give the country space for the growth and jobs issues that I mentioned, so there will be productivity to be able to sustain it, and also significantly to acknowledge that we haven't come to this without doing anything. Our domestic debt exchange program was difficult, sacrificial, and so we have burden shared. It's not like we are coming and telling you, well, you take a haircut, you haven't done anything. Considerable restructuring in Ghana, where we moved interest rates from maybe an average of 19.2 to 9%. Now that's significant. And so that's all on the table. We have done our part with regards to burden sharing. We have done our part with regards to the economic indicators as to where we go. We've done it in the fastest possible time.
Well, joining me in studio now is Isaac Kufieje with our research desk for more on this. We also do have some more persons who will be joining the conversation. But Isaac, thank you for spending some time with us. The Finance Minister confirming to us that that's the way to go. But what are the implications of this restructuring if we were to go with this approach?
Well, I think to be fair enough to start with the proposal on the table and what's in that table proposal for the investors. Already the Finance Minister did a presentation somewhere April this year to the investor community, and he told them the reason why Ghana is having this challenge and the steps that Ghana is taking to make sure that we come back to the normal trajectory, and the fact that they should support us in this whole restructuring process and debt relief. So we are certainly looking for debt relief, sort of forgive me a part of how much I owe you. That is what we are looking for. So the proposal on the table is that we are requesting for haircuts not just on interest, but also on principal. Significantly, we are looking for a haircut between 30 to 40%. This is because of the targets we have and the BOP financing gap that we are supposed to fill as a result of this restructuring and MOUs that we sign with our, external or international creditors. We are also looking for haircuts on interest. We are saying this haircut should not be more than 5%. And then also we are looking at bringing or reducing some of the maturity. So we are looking at a maximum maturity period of 20 years. So mind you, the last time we went to the market to borrow, we borrowed, and some of the bonds were even up to 30 years tenure. So we are bringing the maturity period closer for the investors. So we are telling them that Give us a haircut on principal, give us haircuts on interest, but we'll make sure you get your money probably within a very short period of time than we even anticipated. So that's currently the proposal on the table.
Well, what are the likely implications? Go with that.
Well, so as for the implications, we've already, experienced the first one, which is, and now it's not that Ghana cannot go to the Eurobond market to borrow. We can go, but when you default or when you're at high risk of default, then it simply tells you that your coupon rate is going to be raised. You are high risk, so those who will be willing to lend to you will also lend to you at a high interest rate. Another risk is that, when we're experiencing all of these economic challenges and our yield curve looking at so many things, some of the original holders of our bonds decided to dump them. So when someone dumps your bond, you do not know whose hands the new bond will be. And so it makes the whole restructuring process very, very complicated for governments. We are hoping that it doesn't end up in one of those vulture bondholders who will probably demand more, and it's so difficult, reaching agreements with them. And when you're in debt negotiations or talks with some of these creditors, what they want is their money, because the original holder, some say they've already benefited from a high interest, but they have dumped those bonds. They are gone. Probably you'll be looking at new, holders of your debt. Now, on the screen right now is the external debt portfolio of Ghana. And that will help our viewers to appreciate the problem that we are talking about and the exercise Ghana wants to do. So the total external debt is $30 billion, dollars. This was as of April when the finance minister gave us the updates in Washington. And he told us that if you look at this $30 billion debt that we owe our external creditors, not all of them is, available or eligible for restructuring. Mind you, some of the multilateral debt that we owe have been excluded, about 9 billion of them. So the bonds or the debt that's eligible for restructuring at this moment is 20 billion. Right. And of this 20 billion, we are looking ahead to restructure or rework about 10.5 billion, which will go ahead to give us that fiscal breathing space that we need in our, fiscal breathing space that we need between 2023 and 2026. But if you also look at the focus area on the commercial component, which is the Eurobonds, we are looking at debt that is the Eurobond credit debt that's around 48% of your total debt stock. So the Eurobond creditors and the commercial creditors, we are looking at a debt portfolio of close to $14.4 billion. That's about 48% of your external debt, and also 73% of the restructuring parameter, which is the $20 billion that we are looking for. So Ghana is in a very difficult situation, but if you listen to the finance minister, there seems to be hope that we've actually made, some advancements with our talks with the bilateral guys, where China is now willing to play ball. There's France in the picture. Almost all the countries belonging to the Paris Club are deciding to give us that relief that we need. And I don't know how we are doing this restructuring process, whether it will be a one-off thing, the MOU will be a blanket one for the entire 3 years. Other than that, it means that anytime that Ghana passes a certain review, we have to engage our creditors to make sure that we get the assurances and actual restructuring. I have always been saying that you need to go through all the stages to get the disbursement. You cannot get the entire $3 billion bailout package just by using assurances from your creditors. You need to move from the assurance stage to actual restructuring. Agree, sign MOUs. Let us see the magnitude of haircuts that these guys will be giving you. And blessed, you know already that the problem that we are facing, we need close to $15.5 billion to solve this problem.
Right.
IMF and the World Bank are giving us a total of close to $6 billion. The rest is supposed to come from us. How are you going to generate that? We are supposed to do this through debt restructuring.
And now we've been told that this decision alone has the possibility of shutting us out of the Eurobond market.
Exactly, we are already out. And the risk is that when you perform a debt restructuring or rework with this huge asking that the creditors will give you between 30 to 40% haircut, and it tells you that it will take a long time probably before you even return to the market. In 2007, when we made our debut, we borrowed quite a lot in 2007 and then from then onwards. But the 2015 scenario was a bit different. When we opted for our 16th IMF program, there was no restructuring. And so although we lost access, it took us just 6 months. And we were back to the capital market to borrow again. We were able to borrow more than 1 billion in 2015.
I see.
But this time around, the fact that our debt levels are unsustainable and we have to do a debt restructuring tells you that the dynamics have changed. And the fact that you are doing restructuring has exposed you to reducing your ability of returning to the capital markets. Remember that some of these ratings agencies will come at you again. Already, some of our bonds are in restricted defaults and all of those things. And we don't really look good. We need to do more to actually have that full access to the international capital markets again, where we get usually between $1 to $3 billion every year to show up our budget.
Okay, Isaac, just stay on tight. Richard Echampo is a member of the Finance Committee, also MP for BI, is joining the conversation now. Thank you, sir, for spending some time with us. Your impression about government's approach towards dealing with this external debt restructuring and how that possibly the approach we're taking now could shut us out of the Eurobond market. What are your main concerns about this? It appears,
Can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear, sir. I was just asking your initial impression about government's approach towards this.
Where we are now, we don't have any option than to go and beg for this debt restructuring that we're talking about, and government is looking at between 30 to 40% haircuts. So we need to support government to do that because there's no any other option than to go and beg for debt forgiveness. I just returned from Marrakesh, attended the IMF World Bank spring meeting. We did some sideline meetings and we picked some intelligence that it's going to be tough for us, but we need to push for it, especially dealing with this Chinese government. They are the major creditors that we are looking at. I know many bondholders, if you put all together, they were going to gain some 44% yield, and it's going to reduce to 38%. So ab initio, they are going to lose about 6% of their yield. And the question is, are we going to sustain all these things? Domestically, what is the plan? What is our inflow? Are we going to embark on revenue generation so that we can give indicative that the 20-year period that we're talking about, would Ghana be in the better position to pay back those debts? These are some of the conversations we need to have because we are reducing some bonds from 30-year period to 20-year period. What are the inflows which will enable you to pay the principal and the interest? Because the haircut we're talking about is not only on the principal, it's on the interest and the principal. So we are in a very tough corner, but we need to push for it because as it stands now, there's nothing we can do. We need to go and beg them so that we can also do other things because our debt is not sustainable. Right now, we're looking at around 600 billion Ghana cedis. So how do we pay this interest on the coupon rate and the rest? So it's very tough time for Ghana, but what do? We need to go in for it.
What memo did you issue as a committee to the Minister for Finance on this approach of the external debt restructuring? Because certainly a portion of it might need parliamentary consideration or engagement.
Yes, Parliament will resume 31st of this month, and the budget will also be presented in November, middle of November, thereabout. So the Finance Committee is expecting the Finance Minister to have some engagement because many of the facilities came to Parliament. We gave the approval. So if the tenor is going to change, meaning the terms of the facility is going to change, we gave approval on certain assumptions. So certainly the Minister must come back to the Finance Committee so that we look at the new terms that they are going to engage with the creditors so that if we think it's going to help the country sustain the kind of trajectory the finance minister want to walk all of us through, then we need to give a different approval so that the minister can go ahead and engage the creditors. Because the investors are also watching. If there's a backing from Parliament, well, political parties can change. Finance minister may go the next month or the next day, but Ghana is still Ghana. So they may need parliamentary approval to give them some comfort that come what may, they will get their investment. So at least if they get the parliamentary approval, it's going to also give the creditors some comfort so that they can also deal with the country, not dealing with an individual as a finance minister.
And what's exciting is that you are in markets yourself, a number of engagements coming up where, of course, I was just reading a couple of days ago, Zambia also making some suggestions to the Republic of Ghana. They seem to suggest that we need some capping on the level of borrowing that we do. Probably they feel that should be done through legislation. Zambia is advising the Republic of Ghana in that regard, probably because of their experience. Is that something you'd want to look at on the Finance Committee?
Yeah, it's a long overdue, my brother, because you can't borrow for borrowing's sake. Do you understand? When you are taking a facility or adding on loans, you look at your capacity to repay the loans.
Hello, sir.
And borrow. By the end of the day, you ask yourself, is this sustainable? What is the cash flow that will enable me to pay this facility, either in 5 or 10-year period? So if you are accumulating debt, make sure that there will be productivity on the other hand, so that you can expand your GDP, there will be growth, you create employment, so that people will generate more revenue for you to pay the debt. But you can't just be borrowing, looking at one side, without necessarily looking at the other side, which is productivity, the cash flow, which will help you to pay back the loan. So you ask yourself, you've increased your debt portfolio from 120 billion to some 600 billion. Ask yourself, how are you going to pay back the facility? But previously, we can talk about the Trouble Gas project, the T3, which is generating revenue for us to pay some of the loans that we collected. So if you look at even the what do you call it, the passenger throughput at the T3, any loan that you took for the T3 can pay for itself. If you look at the Trouble Gas processing plants, any loan that we took, the CDB loan that we took for that project, a Trouble Gas project can pay for that facility. But let's ask ourselves, all these loans, what are the projects that we've undertaken with this facility which can pay for itself? So there must be a capping, so that when the red line is being crossed, you get to know that you are getting to the danger zone. You can't just be